Thank you to parents, guardians, grandparents, teachers, administration, my family, who I love, and most importantly, you, my classmates for 4 years. I really considered what I want to say in a graduation speech because I want to say something that matters. So I settled on this. Though media has been a part of people's adolescent lives for quite some time now, in today's world, its presence is felt more strongly than ever before. In particular, social media carries a unique weight. It has essentially created a conflict in that it empowers, spreads awareness rapidly, keeps us in tune with current issues, but at the same time, it magnifies the weight of these social issues. Oftentimes, a post pops on my feed or Explore page in which someone is expressing their activism, making me aware of something important. This, of course, shows the positive side of social media. At the same time, as I keep scrolling to see dozens of other posts relating to that very issue, I not only get exposed once, as I would with a newspaper article or news story, but I am reminded again and again. And because I'm a sensitive person, I hold the weight of each individual post, so in this way, social media can magnify the impact of an issue and force me to engage with it many times over. I bring up this phenomenon because we are the first to experience it. Due to unfamiliarity, we are unable to turn to past generations for an answer. Instead, it is entirely upon us to find a solution. It's particularly important that we do so, as this problem is not specific to political issues. Social media affects us deeply on personal levels as well, also in ways that previous generations haven't had to experience. Essentially, the focus turns inward as social media causes us to question our actions, validity, and socially acceptableness. Yes, past generations have experienced negativity in the media, but they interacted with it in a completely different manner. The newspaper can be put down, the radio and TV switched off, unlike the constant flow offered by social media, which now spits out the same message at a much greater frequency. I guess this is all really to say that we face and feel a greater magnitude of negative energy as high schoolers in 2019 compared to previous generations. Along with magnification of political issues, social media has increased the superficial judgments made about people. Now this might seem obvious, but since more of our interaction is digital and not face-to-face, we see what people choose to display about their activities, lifestyle, or bodies. When we see a post, we are forced to make an automatic decision about whether or not we like what we see. When I reflect on social media, I realize that the instant judgment demanded by social networking sites is just so messed up. We're frequently told to be careful about what we put out there on social media, as it could affect our chances of getting a certain job or into a certain college, but we aren't nearly as often told to be careful for our mental health, which ultimately matters more and will actually affect us a lot more in the long run. Not only is social media limiting and superficial, but is one of the biggest contributors to the self-doubt that so many of us are so familiar with. Of course, feelings of self-consciousness can arise from other sources, but social media magnifies them or functions as a new source of concern altogether. Now with social media, I can sit in class and worry if people think my new shirt is cool, and if the picture of me and my friends all dressed up for prom that I posted last night is cool. Great. Though a lot of positivity can come from the instant gratification of getting likes on Instagram, which I hate to admit that I do find affirming, this fulfillment ends up being temporary, whereas the anxieties and worry tend to linger, and the nature of social media is what allows it to do so. It seems kind of ironic that taking care of ourselves holistically is made more difficult by a technology that's purpose is self-expression. It turns out that this technology creates the unspoken expectation of being social media perfect and goes on to reinforce this expectation by exposing us to our own imperfections again and again. Knowing this issue stands and is not going away anytime soon, how shall we live our embodied, experiential, and digital lives in a balanced way? The answer to this dilemma is complex and varies based on who you are and what you need. You know, people have said, oh, just shut off your phone, or why don't you delete Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook? Yeah, okay. People are not going to stop passing the instant judgments that get stuck on the various platforms, I'm afraid. So it looks like it's on us to find a mindset change. Now, there isn't one true answer, but I do have some ideas. This past winter, I was in a class at a meditation center, and the yoga instructor teaching the class said something that I still think about almost every day. She said, life is too short to worry about being awkward. I mean, like, right? But anyway, since that advice, I cannot tell you the number of times I've caught myself thinking, oh, was that a weird thing to say? Should I have done this, not done this, said something else, not posted that comment, and stopped, reflected on the instructor's advice, and let it go. Life is too short to worry about being awkward, especially because of the way social media facilitates superficial judgment passing and fuels our self-conscious tendencies. So I guess what this phrase helps me do is keep it all in perspective. It reminds me that we must be mindful and pay attention to how we're interacting with social media, because ultimately, we need to take care of ourselves. This phrase also helps me remember that we have the choice to decide how we're going to interact with social media, and that we have the power to set our own boundaries. Once we're able to stop worrying about being social media perfect, there's room to find what we need to take care of ourselves, even if those needs aren't perfect. It's up to each of us to figure out what we individually need to take care of ourselves, and it's each of our choices to decide how to proceed. We have the answers inside of us. Whether they are learned or naturally within us, we need to tap into them, whatever they may be, and begin to live them. Figuring out how to do this is a huge piece of our next steps, because even though we have the power and freedom to do so, we also need the confidence to not expect ourselves to be perfect, or more importantly, look perfect to others. As we know from the news right now, our politicians aren't going to figure it out for us. Even the engineers of social media can't figure it out. We're the pioneers of this strange new ground, and we often get a bad rap. So, while our parents and grandparents have always been there with great advice, they certainly don't have this answer. You have the power to live out whichever answer makes sense for you, so I say, do it. Thank you again, and congratulations to the class of 2019.